What's up, my friend? Welcome to the Finding Direction podcast. My name is Stu Massengill, and I'm here every single week to bring you a passionate guest or message dedicated to helping you find your purpose so that you can live a life full of passion, fulfillment, and happiness. From the bottom of my heart, thank you for hanging out with me, and let's dive in. What's up, my friend? Welcome back to another episode here on Finding Direction. I hope you are having an out-freaking-standing day. I hope you are appreciating the heart beating in your chest, the air flowing through your lungs, and the fact that you get to live another day on this precious thing we call Earth. So thank you again for joining us today. On this week's episode, we are sitting down with Evan Nierman. And a little bit about Evan Nierman. He is the crisis PR guru and mastermind and CEO behind Red Banyan, a world-renowned PR agency that always knows exactly what to say and when to say it. With two game-changing books under his belt, one on crisis communication, the other on cancel culture, Evan has nearly 30 years of experience in navigating high-pressure situations with grace and poise. Through his career, he's provided strategic communication counsel to top business leaders, government officials, and presidential candidates. And ultimately, his approach is simple: press the truth. Now, on this episode, a few things we dive into is putting yourself in a place of opportunity, how to get a mentor to level up to the next stage of your life, and cancel culture, and really what you need to know about it right now in today's moment. So this episode, you're going to get a lot of value from. Evan is just a all-around good dude with a fun and exciting story that has so many lessons we unpack in this episode. So we're going to dive in just a moment. If you have not yet, make sure you hit that subscribe button so you can join us on this show every single week as we bring you conversations and insights to help you live a life full of passion, fulfillment, and happiness. So without that, my friend, let's dive in to the conversation. Here we go. Evan Nierman, welcome to the show, man. I'm excited to have you here.
Thank you. I'm stoked to be here.
Let's go. So I figured where we could dive in with our conversation today is I would love it if you could fill us in on the part of your life starting at transitioning into the quote-unquote real world. I think, many of us have had that experience, or some of our listeners may be having that experience soon, where you're, kind of stepping your foot in this real world and figuring out, what am I supposed to do here, right? So for you, as you took that first step, what did that kind of look like? Did you have an idea of what you always wanted to do, or kind of fill us in a little bit?
Yeah, so I went to school. I grew up in Shreveport, Louisiana, which is this small town, northwest Louisiana, right at the point where Arkansas and Texas and Louisiana all come together. And while I had a great childhood there and a really good education in the public school system and whatnot, I knew I really wanted to leave Louisiana. And I wanted to go someplace where there was just a lot more happening. Yeah. And so when it came time to go to college, I chose to go to George Washington University in Washington, D.C., because I really wanted to be in the middle of politics and policy, and D.C. as the nation's capital. And the fact that GW had an urban campus that was just right in the heart of downtown, a few blocks from the White House, I was like, there's plenty going on here. This is where I need to go.
Yeah.
And one of the cool things about GW, in addition to just being an interesting school where they also have a lot of professors who aren't just academics who are reading to you from textbooks and they're talking about theoretical stuff. They have a lot of people who are actually practitioners, and in their day-to-day lives, they're working, and then they're also teaching on the side as opposed to full-time pipe smoking library dwellers. So that was really cool. So I got exposure to good professors, but then the best part about GW was we had no classes on Fridays because they wanted us to go out into the city and get internships. And so I had no idea what I wanted to do. I started studying communication because I'm like, that's kind of a catch-all. It applies to everything. I'll just do that. And I always liked learning, and I liked interpersonal communication and intercultural and all the classes that were part of that. But I really had no idea, what am I going to do with that when I go into the real world?
Right.
And so having those internships was a great opportunity for me, not just to try things that I thought I would like. Mostly, I found out what I didn't want to do.
Hmm.
And I already knew from before those internships, just from having other jobs, like what I definitely didn't want to do. I didn't want to be
Yeah.
a furniture polisher, which I'd done. I didn't want to be working as a glorified janitor, which I'd done. I knew I didn't want to be a
Yeah.
waiter, which I'd done. But then having all these internships, I also found out other things with corporate jobs that I didn't want to do. But it did ultimately lead me to a really cool internship that then became my first job. And I ended up staying there almost 7.5 years.
Dang.
I know,
That's incredible.
unheard
And
of in
what,
today's world.
yeah, and what was the internship, just so we have an idea?
Yeah, so I was working for an organization called the American Israel Public Affairs Committee. So it's an advocacy organization that seeks to strengthen the relationship between the United States and Israel. And the part that was
Hmm.
so amazing about this internship, in addition to the fact that it dealt with international affairs and lots of complex, fascinating subjects, really the reason I was there and what I thought you were going to ask me is why the hell did you stay so long?
Hmm.
And the answer to that question is because I had a mentor. I had someone who was
Oh,
invested in my success, an amazing woman by the name of Renee Rothstein. And she just, every year, when I'd come in for my annual review, she basically was like, look, you already know you did a great job this year. What do I have to do to get you to stay around for another year? Tell me, what have you not learned about that you want to learn about? Where have you
hmm.
not gotten
Wow.
exposure? So it was always about learning and growing and expanding. And thank God I had her in my life and I had her
Yeah.
invested in my success because she really set the trajectory for my entire professional life.
Yeah. That's amazing. So, two things that I think are just fascinating about just even this part of your journey that I think everybody can take sort of a just a note from is the idea, first and foremost, of you said, I know that I want to be around a specific type of industry. There was just a certain energy you wanted to be around. And moving to Washington, D.C., it's like you put yourself in the place where opportunity existed. And I think that's such a huge aspect of, if you have an idea of what you want to do with your life, yeah, it's a big move to say, I'm going to move all the way to DC and like put myself in the center. But I think it's such an important thing where like you have to put yourself in a place where opportunities exist. And that's what you did. And I think, you want to, I mean, the classic example, right? You want to be an actor, you want to be in the movie industry, you move to Hollywood because there's opportunity there. And obviously it's similar in other industries. You want to get into the tech space, well, maybe move to Silicon Valley, right? But it's like, I think that's
Yeah.
such an
Or
important aspect
Miami.
of, or Miami, yeah.
Yeah.
And so I think that's just one thing that I've seen in my life that's played a really big impact is moving to places where opportunity exists. And the second thing that I would just be curious to hear you expand upon a little bit is you stayed there 7 years because you had a mentor that massively impacted your life. I've had mentors in my life that's similar to you. For the rest of my life, I'll talk about them because they've had such an incredible impact on my life that have set the trajectory for my life. And I'm curious, if our listener is hearing this conversation, they're going, wow, mentors are great. And that sounds awesome. And I don't feel like I have that in the company that I'm with. Like, what would some of your thoughts or suggestions be on like, how can you find a mentor, whether it's in your company, whether it's somewhere else that you really can sort of link arms with that can help you kind of get clear on what's next? Because I mean, in your life, it's been huge. And I'm sure that's something you advocate to other people as well.
Absolutely. And I think you're 100% right that you have to put yourself, I'm not a big believer in luck, but I do
Mhm.
believe that the harder you work, the luckier you get. And you
Yeah.
have to put yourself in a position where when a fortunate event or where an opportunity is there, you're in a position to seize it. And so for me,
Right.
that meant moving to Washington. For some people, it may be, look, if you got to move out of your parents' house, you need to put yourself in a
Yeah.
different environment. And sometimes changing your environment changes everything. And I've
Yeah.
got a younger brother who's almost 7 years younger than me, and when he took a leap and made a physical move and he left our hometown and he moved to Dallas and he went to work for
Huh.
Microsoft, just changing his universe, what he
Yeah.
sees every day and the people around him led to a whole new level of growth for him on his journey.
So
So I'm
cool.
a big advocate that when you change your environment, you open up so many new possibilities and new
Yeah.
networks of people, et cetera. And a lot of times people are really scared to make that leap or that move. And I had this sort of thing holding me back. I remember when I was in my 20s too, everything feels like such a massive decision. And you're weighing the cost benefit analysis and you're thinking in your head of all the reasons why this probably won't work and all the things that could go wrong.
Yeah.
And you don't really, what you find out later, and I'm much I'm further along my journey now. I'm into my
Yeah.
40s, and so I have a different perspective. But fear, I've heard it described as an acronym really for false events appearing real, and I believe
Yeah.
that. And the worst thing that can happen is it doesn't work out, in which case you
Right.
probably are going to take away some great learnings, and that's certainly been the case in my life. And the jobs and the internships that I had that sucked and didn't work out well ended up being formative experiences. So I think
Yeah.
people have to have the courage and just know, like, what's the worst that happens? It doesn't work out, and you learn from that experience too. And so
Yeah.
that's always there. It's available. Now, I was lucky because one, I didn't know I needed a mentor,
Right.
but the mentor found me. And I
Mm.
was very fortunate because my mentor happened to be my boss. And
Yeah.
I think for a lot of people, that's not the case.
For
And
sure. I would agree.
what I would say is, yeah, but you don't need to necessarily have your mentor be the person that you see every day. If you can find that in your workplace, and there's someone. So to the second part of your question, how do you go out and you get that mentor? I think if
Right.
there's someone who you know and you recognize within the organization where you are now, they either have a job that you hope to one day, you aspire to be in a similar position, or you find that they're really smart, they're really good at what they
Yeah.
do. Well, that's someone who's it's a no-brainer. Approach them and tell them why you are reaching out to them. And 9 times out of 10, if you approach someone and ask them to become your mentor, they're going to say yes, because
Yeah.
it's very it's a humbling experience to have someone
Yeah.
want to tap into your expertise, and it honestly, it gives you an opportunity to have an impact in a positive way on someone's life. So it's really, find the people around you who are, and if they're not in your office, maybe they're just people who you know in your social life, or
Right.
they're people who you've looked up to. It may be someone who's a family friend. It may just be some stranger who you hear speak at an event and they blow you away. Approach them. Don't be
Yeah.
afraid to reach out and ask them. Um, and there's simple ways to do this. I'm not saying that you have to hear someone give a talk one time at a networking event and then
Yeah.
approach them and ask them to become your lifelong guide. It's not doesn't need to be quite that heavy, but you
Yeah.
could say, look, I'd love to take you to lunch. Let me buy you lunch. I would love to just spend half an hour, 45 minutes with you. And then if it's appropriate, then you continue the conversation after that. But if not, you have an amazing lunch experience. You get the person face to face, and you can really tap into their expertise. So
Yeah.
that's what I would recommend to any young person who's kind of looking to find their way. Tap into the experiences of people who've gone before you, and
Yeah.
it short circuits the amount of time that you have to spend figuring out what you want.
For real. And I love that you touched on you have someone that comes in and speaks, you like them, like take them to lunch or something like that. Like this is one of the biggest things I share, um, just to network in an effective way, is literally buying people lunch. Like when I worked at Vans for a period of time, I actually did an internship there. And one of the things that I
Cool.
sought out to do was every single day, pretty much, my goal was I'm going to take somebody new to lunch. And so I would email everybody in different departments. I would email the VPs. I would email the CEO, like every single person I could, and just say, hey, I would love to pick your brain. Can I buy you lunch, buy you coffee? And it was such an incredible opportunity to meet so many people in this company. And I think, again, for someone looking for a mentor, it's like, could you just email the VP? Could you email the CEO of your company and say, hey, I would just love to take you to lunch. If you're a virtual company, you could take them to virtual lunch. And I think one
That's
thing
so
that's
smart.
yeah, and I think one thing that's interesting for people is like I took this guy, his name's Steve Van Doren, to lunch once, and Steve Van Doren's dad was Paul Van Doren, who started the company Vans. And so I took him to lunch, and I came back, and everybody was like, "How'd you take him to lunch? Like, how'd you do that?" And I was like, "Well, I just asked." You know what I mean? I
Uh-huh.
just sent him an email, and I went over to his office, knocked on his door, saw if he was open for it, and it was like that's really all that it takes. And I think if you do that in your company, you're going to find a mentor, someone you connect with, click with. And then, like you said, maybe after that lunch, you have another conversation of saying, hey, I would love some mentorship in my life right now. Could we create some sort of mentorship, right? Because I think, I mean, you hear people's stories over and over and over. Mentorship's a really big part of it. So going back into your story,
Yeah.
again, 7 years you're at this company. You have an awesome mentor. She's really impacted your life in a huge way. And so, what happens around 7 years where, I mean, at least from our perspective, it seems like things are going pretty well. You've been there 7 years. You got a great mentor. She's, continuing to help you learn and grow and become a better person. What took place at 7 years that made you go, you know what? I need to shift my direction.
Yeah, everything was going right there. And when I
Hmm.
told my family I was leaving and I was doing something else, they were like, I don't understand. Why? You love your job, right?
Yeah.
Yes. You love your boss, right? Yes. So why are you leaving? And I knew that I could stay at that organization and be very happy and be very successful. What I was concerned about was I would blink and I would be there for 10 years and then I'd blink again and I would have been there for 20 years. And, part of what was so hard was my first job out of school was incredible. And that very rarely happens,
Yeah.
but I wasn't ready to say, I want to stay here forever. And I'm committing for the rest of my life to be in this one place. And one of the things that actually happened was there was a crisis situation that occurred
Hmm.
within the organization. And it is an amazing organization with the most high integrity, great people. And through no fault of their own, they got embroiled in this negative news cycle.
Hmm.
And because I was the internal guy who handled PR and communications, when they brought in these outside consultants who were crisis PR experts, I was the one who was working with them. And
Hmm.
so when I saw what these guys did, I was like, aha, a light bulb went off in my
Yeah.
head. I didn't know what I was going to do next. I just knew that I was looking for something different and I was banding about ideas. Should I get an MBA? Should I go to law school? I didn't really know. But then when I had the chance to work with these individuals and see what they did, I was like, could be a really cool opportunity
Yeah.
because I see what they do. I see the impact. This is interesting to me. I want to try that. So when I left, I actually went to a firm that did high stakes and crisis communications. And by the way, I will just say I left in the best possible way. In fact, I think a lot of young people would do well to sort of model what I did, which was when it's time to go, tell your boss well in advance. I didn't give a 2 weeks notice. I gave a
Yeah.
notice even before. And I just said, look, I don't know when, but I'm going to start the process of looking because it's just my time to move on. And I wanted to give you tons of time to know and to make a
Yeah.
plan to replace me, et cetera. But I just, I wanted to express my appreciation for everything you've given me up to this point. But this is just something that I have to do for me. And so my notice ended up being more like a 2 or 3 month notice. But then also when I left on the best of terms. And so once I
Yeah.
left, I ended up consulting for the organization for really
Nice.
been working for them in the 20 years since or 15 years since.
Amazing.
So there's a right way to leave and not burn a bridge and help the organization see that it's just time. And organizations don't want to hold good organizations understand that and they don't want to hold you back
Right.
from accomplishing what you want to do in your life. And so that was the leap that I made. So I left this amazing, and it took a lot of courage because
For
everything
sure.
was so great. And I had this big idea about where I was going, and I was completely wrong, and it blew up in my face, and it was a terrible choice in some ways
Hmm. Wild.
because I got to a place that I had super high expectations for, and the work was interesting, but I hated the culture. I hated the way that the new firm treated our clients. It treated them like a piggy bank. The idea was they're in crisis, therefore we can charge them whatever we want. Let's get as
Right.
much money as fast as we can. And then if we end up hating each other, well, at least we got paid. And so I was working at this company. It wasn't the
Right.
right cultural fit for me. And I didn't stay long. I stayed about a year and a half. But at the time, I was thinking to myself, I really like the type of work we do. I just
Yeah.
don't like who we're doing it for and how we're doing it. One day, if I had my own agency, I would do it
Yeah.
completely differently. And that was what I was thinking at the time.
Yeah. And so for you, like what pulled you and excited you so much about crisis management? I think it's such it's something that we've never had a guest on the show that's sort of been what they dove into, and I just think it's so interesting when people get pulled in different directions as far as like, yeah, like this is my thing. Like I love crisis management. I love helping people with it, helping companies. So like for you, what was sort of the draw and the pull that was like, yeah, man, like this is my thing?
Super easy. I had seen what can happen when a great organization starts getting bad press and is pulled into a crisis mode through no fault of their own. And I saw this, and then I saw the role that the crisis PR people could play in helping the organization navigate this time and then come back stronger than ever. And so for me, it was just such a perfect opportunity to take, what's the what? The what of what I do is communications.
Hmm.
And then the why, which is you can do it in a way to help organizations, to help them press the truth, to get the facts out, to empower themselves. For me to be in a position to guide companies or organizations and to step in at a time of need and help
Yeah.
empower them and bolster them and get them ready to regain their strength,
Yeah.
that's a really exciting thing. And that is what actually was I didn't recognize exactly why at the time. I just knew it was exciting. Like the stakes are high. You've got
Yeah.
national media. There's kind of this adrenaline rush, but I didn't fully like I was attracted, but I didn't understand fully. It's kind of like with a relationship. You may find yourself drawn to someone and you just
Right.
know that there's chemistry there, but you can't put your finger on why. And then it's only later you could say, oh, this is probably why I
Yeah.
was drawn to this person when you think about it after the fact. And so I've had time to reflect on it. That's, I think, the passion that I had was based on that. And then, years later, a couple more gigs down the road when I did have my own business, that's what excites me. And that's what I try to infuse in my team, and that we bring that excitement at Red Banyan to the work that
Yeah.
we do for clients. The why is to help them press the truth and to help them accomplish their goals using our skills, which are in communications.
So cool. Yeah, and you can feel it in your voices. You just, it's what you're supposed to be doing. And if we go further down your story a little bit more to current times, obviously you have a new book that just came out that's all about, cancel culture and really the impact that has on our world. And I'd be curious for you, what maybe two kind of a two-part question. One, what would you say cancel culture is in your definition? And two, what do you think, someone who's sort of in the early stages of their career, like what do they need to really understand and know about cancel culture?
Yeah. So I'm going to read to you because I don't want to botch the definition. I've got the
Yeah.
book right here with me.
Let's
So
go.
this is the definition that my co-author Mark Sachs and I put to paper in this book. And that is, we define cancel culture as the use of intimidation by a morally absolute coalition to isolate and disproportionately punish an alleged transgressor. Now, we thought it was really important to create a definition around cancel culture because it's something that people talk about all the time, but
Yeah.
there's not really, up until this point, an accepted definition. And
Yeah.
so we thought, if you're going to combat cancel culture, you first have to define it in order to defeat it. And I think, the other part in terms of defining what makes up cancel culture is our research took us down this path where we were actually able to ascertain for the first time ever, how do you know what are the critical elements that really need to be there in order to call something cancel culture as opposed to just
Hmm.
a bad decision or a
Right.
crisis situation. And so, if people pick up a copy of the book, they'll see that there's this framework that we call condemn, and it's the acronym CANDEM. And I won't go too deep in it because obviously, if you want to go deep, you can just buy a copy of the book and go super deep. But
Yeah.
the condemn framework, which defines cancel culture, is that the crime or the offense is committed against a collective. So it's not just against a person, it's because you've been deemed as having insulted or transgressed against a group, whether it's
Okay.
based on religion or race or ethnicity or any one of a number of, gender, any one of a number of other factors.
Yeah.
The A is that it arises and it accelerates very quickly. The N is that the nature of the offense is actually either fabricated or it's small. The D is that it produces a disproportionate response. The E, everyone is afraid to defend you when you get under fire. And the M is
Hmm.
the people who are trying to cancel you, they are morally absolutist in their belief. They think that no matter what they do to you, it's justified because they are on the side of angels. They're giving
Interesting.
you what you deserve. And so when you look at that condemn framework and you start to think and you hear about incidents described in the press, et cetera, as cancel culture, run them against that, and you'll be able to tell if 5 of the 6 elements are
Yeah.
there, or all 6. It's bona fide cancel culture. If not, it's probably not cancel culture. And the reason that I wrote the book was because in my day to day life as a crisis manager, I
Yeah.
had seen over the last couple of years average people, normal men and women, business owners, executives at other companies, whose lives were completely destroyed
Hmm.
because of cancel culture. And there's this misperception out there that somehow, we need cancel culture to hold people accountable. And that cancel culture is a great thing. And that the main people that are getting canceled are, rich white men of a, cisgender, heteronormative, et cetera, et cetera. Okay, nonsense. There's actually people from every walk of life who are getting canceled. And it's really dangerous because what it does is it makes any mistake permanent. And Lord knows we all make mistakes. And so the
Yeah.
danger with living in a cancel culture world or accepting the notion that cancel culture is a good thing, it means that any of us who makes a mistake, and by the way, note to all your listeners, that is every single one of
Yeah.
us. It means that we're vulnerable and we're susceptible, and there can be a group of people out there who decide at some point that we've done or said something that's upsetting to them, and then they take it upon themselves to wreak havoc in our lives. And I think that's unfair, and I think it's fundamentally un-American, and that's why I wrote the book.
Yeah. So if you could have a conversation, let's say, with someone who's, again, kind of early stages of career, and you had, let's say, you're at a coffee table, you have 90 seconds to share with them just the message that they really need to know moving forward for the next 4 or 5 decades of their life about cancel culture.
Mm-hmm.
What's the message that you would leave them with that they need to know as they kind of progress throughout the rest of their career and their life?
Yeah. So one is don't be a participant in cancel culture. Don't go become a cancel vulture and
Mm.
try to take down other people because unless you know the full context, uh, it's rushing to judgment, it's prejudging people, and you wouldn't like it if the shoe were on the other foot. So that's one.
Mm.
Two, do your best to avoid getting canceled. And the main way to do that is actually in your hands. And that has to do with your activities, especially on social media. If you remember these 2 things, share with care and post with purpose, you will take away the likelihood that you're going to be canceled by at least 90%, if not more. So if you're
Love that.
careful about what you're putting out there and you're thoughtful about it and you're not rushing to engage with people who are antagonizing you online, but you're actually thinking, before you hit post, is this something I really want out there in the world? Is this something I
Yeah.
would be proud of? Is this how I want the world to perceive me? And if the answer is yes, then by all means, share it. But if you're not sure, or the answer is no, don't do it
Yeah.
because we live in a world that is hyper connected, and the mistakes that we make today can dog us for years and years to come. So I would just encourage all of your listeners who are active online, and that's every single one of us, because guess what?
Yeah.
We've all got this in our pocket. We all have a cell phone. We're
Yeah.
all, for the most part, active on social media in some
Right.
way, shape, or form. We're living under a microscope, and people are going to look to see what they can find about you online, and perception becomes reality. So, go through your life with that in mind. Be careful. I'm not telling you
Yeah.
you have to live in fear, but be thoughtful about how you
Right.
comport yourself. And also, I think treat other people as you would want to be treated. It's back to the golden rule.
Yeah.
And if you would
Yeah.
abide by that, we're going to all collectively make this a much more forgiving, understanding, and positive society. So, how's
Heck
that?
yeah.
I think I clocked
I
in under 90 seconds.
yeah, crush it. And I love the two things, right? Share with care, post with purpose, and use that as kind of like a guiding light. It really is a beautiful lens to look at before you're gonna hit post, hit send, whatever it is to share with care, post with purpose, and kind of letting that be a North Star to lead some of your actions. So I love the way that you package that. And I'm curious, for our listener who's going, man, I need more of Evan in my life. I want to hang out with him more, get to know him,
No one's
check out
thinking that, but okay.
I think everybody's thinking it. So let me ask you this, though. Where's the best place they can find you, hang out with you, get access to the new book? Where's the best place to point our listener?
Yeah. Well, I'm active on Twitter. Recently got started there because after sitting out on
Okay.
purpose of the discussion on Twitter to focus on other things, I was like, you know what? If I'm going to be talking about this, I got to go into the lion's den. So I'm
Yeah.
active on Twitter now at Evan Nierman. You can also get information about cancel culture, about the book, a little bit more about me, and you can connect with me by going to cancelculture.com. That's easy to remember.
Yeah.
And
Cool.
for those of you who are more focused on kind of communications, or that gets you going, you want to learn more about crisis PR, you can obviously just Google Red Banyan, or you can go to Red Banyan's website and
Heck yeah.
find ways to connect with me there. And I respond to my email. I'm on LinkedIn. If you go looking
Heck
for me,
yeah.
you'll find me.
Love it. And we'll put all that in the show notes as well, so it's nice and easy for everybody to find. And my last question I have for you, which we ask all of our guests because we want to help our listener find direction, but we really do believe in doing it through action, is for you, what would you say is one thing our listener can do in the next 24 to 48 hours to start finding direction in their life?
Wow, that's a great question. It's only one thing that they need to do, right? To
Yeah.
start finding direction in their lives. I would say make a list of 3 to 5 people that you admire who are in your life. I'm not talking about like people who are actually going to be hard to bring on as your mentor. Like, don't write down Elon Musk,
Yeah.
Beyonce, Jay-Z, and a couple of other
Yeah.
of these folks. But think about people in your lives, in your orbit,
Cool.
who you respect in some way. You respect them business wise. You respect them as a family person, uh, someone who you admire. And I would
Yeah.
say reach out to those people. And like you said, people will say yes if you ask them for just a little bit of their time and a little bit of
Yeah.
guidance. And so make that list. And then I would say, tell yourself within the next 3 to 5 days, I'm going to contact everyone on this list and
Yeah.
ask them if I can have start easy. Don't ask them for a huge commitment. Would you be willing to
Yeah.
get on a Zoom call with me for 15 minutes? I'd just love to get some insight from you. I really admire what you've been able to do in your life. Would you be willing to spare 15 minutes to
Mm.
help me? And I would venture a guess that people will say yes to that. And
Yeah.
then you'll go from there, and you'll gather and just keep moving forward.
Heck yeah. I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. Well, Evan, it's been an honor to have you on the show, man. Thank you for sharing your journey. It's so many insights and wisdom, and excited to see what you continue to do. So again, thank you so much for being here, and we appreciate who you are.
Thank you, Stu. This was great. Looking forward to continuing the conversation. I'm glad we connected.
Heck yeah, me too. Congratulations, my friend, on crushing it through another episode here on Finding Direction. Make sure you give yourself a pat on the back, a round of applause, because you are one of the few who is not willing to settle for less than a life that lights up your soul, and that is absolutely something worth celebrating. I want to say thank you, as always, for joining me on this episode and on this podcast. It is an absolute honor to hang out with you every single week on this show. I hope you got some value from Evan's story, and more importantly, as always, I hope you take at least one thing from that conversation and you start to apply it to your life, because that's how you move the needle forward. All right, my friend, have a wonderful, beautiful, outstanding, incredible rest of your day, and I will talk to you on the podcast soon. Take care.